God loves all that God loves. Think about that. Think about it.
Artists think that when somebody comes to your show that it's about, the lights or the sound or even the musicianship or, whatever, how many octaves you have vocally or whatever. And he said, all that stuff helps, but that's not why somebody's there. If somebody's come to see, spend time with you while you're on a platform, they've come to make a connection and feel loved.
Right.
And I thought about like all the concerts that had lived in my memory were the ones where I was like, oh, Bono is singing to me. Like we have a connection. We've made this, or that connection you feel with everyone else who's there. When you all start singing along, you realize you all know the same thing by heart, right? And so I thought, that checks out. And he said, so anytime you find yourself on a platform, your job is to love the audience well, which he defined it as just using all that you are and all you have available for the good of everyone in the room.
Historically speaking, a way station is a rest stop for weary pilgrims at the end of their day of travel. It's a safe place to get a meal, to replenish supplies, and rest up before the next day's journey. It's an opportunity to enjoy the company of others, to get news from other lands, and to exchange ideas. Waystation's podcast allows me to share with you some of the people I meet on my many travels. Authors, artists, theologians, activists, people that think differently than me, who have perspectives I wouldn't come to on my own, and who enrich my vision and appreciation for the complexities that make life the wonder and challenge that it is. Thanks for joining me. My name is Steve Bell, and this is Waystation's podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Waystation's podcast. I'm your host, Steve Bell, and this is episode 5. And you may notice that it's been a year and a half since episode 4. I took a bit of a break for reasons that aren't all that interesting, so I won't get into it. But here we are again. And the guest today is a guest you've already met in podcast 4, Carolyn Arends. She's a singer-songwriter, author, spiritual director, theologian, wonderful, wonderful friend of mine. We've toured together. We've played on each other's albums. I've asked her a few times to help me writing songs. She's one of my heroes for sure. She has written a brand new song called Fall in Love, and I heard it a couple weeks ago, and I just about jumped out of my chair. I don't know why. I just love it so much. I've listened to it a ton, and I wanted you to hear it. So over the next hour, I talked to her about her early career and how she kind of got going and how that developed into her work down in Nashville with Benson Records and all of that kind of music business nerdy stuff and the people she worked with. This is all interesting to me. When we get towards the end of the conversation, we'll start to shift gears and talk about this brand new song of hers, which I think is well worth your time. And at the end, you'll hear the song. You'll see a little video that she put together. So I hope you enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to her just now. So enjoy. Hello, Carolyn Arends.
Hello, Steve Bell.
So we're just chatting that this is my podcast, which I started in 23. And I started out by saying I was not going to be very regular. I'd do it when I had the time and inclination. I did 4 in a row. You were the 4th. And that's the last one I've done, and now you're the 5th. So I'm good to my promise that I'm not going to be regular on my podcast. This is bad podcasting. It doesn't build, energy. But I'm glad to have you on. The last time we talked, the reason why I talked to you is because you'd written a song about the passing of your mother, and I had written a song about the passing of my father. And I thought, we should talk. And it was a kind of a fun, and I actually just went back and listened to the conversation. And I really, we'll put a link up in the show notes or here somewhere if people want to go back to that one. It's a lovely conversation about people you and I both knew and loved personally. So it's not academic at all, and about grief and loss, and how those turned into songs, and we played those songs. It's a really good, it's good.
Yeah, I went back and listened to it too. Yeah, to see what we had talked about the last time we did one of these. And I was very moved by it. And I was also afraid that I had killed your podcast because I was the last one on there in 23. So it brings me deep joy to resume the podcast with you.
Yes,
and
yes.
if ever a human was built for podcasting, it's you. You're such a great conversationalist. So I'm glad, regular or not, that you're doing it. And thanks for having me back.
It's a lovely way to sort of document friendships and ideas and thoughts and dialogue, So let's continue that. You came up with a new song recently called "Fall in Love," and I thought that'd be for clickbait. We should call this podcast "Carolyn Arends and Steve Bell Fall in Love." And I think that would really help the numbers because people. But we're talking about the song "Fall in Love," and the reason I jumped when I heard it. I think you said it in an email or something, and I didn't know you had a new song coming out. I typically think a new song comes out with an album, and I don't think that's the case this time. It's a singular song. I listened to it right away. From that opening, and for folks that are listening, you're going to get to hear the song. That opening loop of Roy doing the harmonic thing, just right away, my ears kind of went, "Oh, this is a little different. It's interesting." It sucked me in. And then the very first line, and let's not get into it yet, but I'm just going to say why I'm interested in this song. The very first line, I thought she didn't write that. It's the way it's written. The structure of the sentence is not a songwriter sentence.
Right.
And I went, that's from a poem or something. And the reason why I recognize is I'm always writing to other people's texts.
Right,
and I find it intriguing how people do that. And they take a line that isn't necessarily easily singable and make it singable. Whatever, right? So it's all, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I just recognized a kinship. And I kind of, yeah, she did that, and I know you've done it before. So I'd like to chat about that a little bit. But also, it's suddenly dawned on me that I don't remember hearing kind of your origin story. And I'm sure I have. We've known each other for a long time. So I can't imagine I've never asked you. But where do you come from? And I mean, like, out of what social, religious, cultural background, what creates a Carolyn Arends?
Well, and I'm trying to think if I know yours. I know some of yours, but not as much as I would like to. You probably don't know mine because it's pretty outstandingly boring. I mean, it's okay. I remember I remember once in I don't know, 8th grade, grade 8 for our fellow Canadians. My English teacher was trying to describe someone who'd had the most white bread, middle class upbringing ever. And he said, for crying out loud, his dad was a banker and his mom was a nurse. And I was like, oh, my dad is a banker and my mom is a nurse. Oh no, I am doomed. There is no creative or artistic future for me. But yeah, no, I grew up, in a really sort of middle class, kind of like teetering on the edge of fundamentalist Baptist kind of environment, but also some genuine relationship and love. Yeah,
that's very similar to mine, sort of teetering or on the margins of that sort of Baptist fundamentalist upbringing. But for mine, there was a solidity to it. There was safety. There was a security. There was comfort. There was. So I'm assuming your home was generally good and.
It was, it was. It was loving and full of humor and full of music. My dad was the church organist. I found out his very first job he ever had was as the organist for the drive-in movie theater in Victoria when he was a kid. My mom had a way with words, but it was sort of.
Before we go there, my mom played piano at movies.
What? See?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
we were like raised in test tubes in different provinces. Yeah. So no, it was a good home. And it's funny in the work that I do at Renovaré, spiritual formation organization, we always go back to people's first picture of God. And And I had, on my wall in my bedroom from a little kid, a picture of Jesus with the children. And there's all kinds of problems with it now. Like I look at it now and it was like this very Western white Jesus, and it was sanitized. And yet it was like, it was ground zero for me, this loving face of God. And then that was mediated to me in the biggest way through my mom. My mom is probably my, and we talked about this in our last conversation, actually, probably my core picture of God. But anyways, that's how I grew up. I have 2 younger brothers, lots of music, lots of laughter, lots of Canucks fandom, sports fandom. But I was painfully shy. And then, I asked to take piano lessons very young. And then when I was about 10, my dad brought home a guitar. He wanted to learn to play guitar, and he brought home this orange gut string guitar. And we learned Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley together. And just that was enough of a can opener that like the next day I wrote a song for my mom for Mother's Day, like at 10.
Really?
And yeah.
The day after your first guitar lesson.
I believe so. Something like that, like very, very soon.
Wow.
And I don't know why I didn't, later I wrote songs on piano, but it took guitar first to kind of unlock that writing thing. And then, as an incredibly shy kid, to write a song and watch the power that it had, albeit in a very... in a very on-side audience, right? My family. There was something very profound about that.
Right.
And then, my little Baptist congregation, from the age of about 12 on, the pastor there would occasionally call me and say, I'm preaching on this on Sunday, write me a song to go with it. And I would sing it at church. And I think now of the people in that,
how old were you when that started?
Like 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And how those could not have been good songs. They have been lost to the mist of time. But man, how they kind of midwifed my artistry into the world, such a gift. And it's funny, just an aside, some people listening may remember special music, and I'm using air quotes, in church. And, we have kind of left that in most church congregations by the wayside and said, oh no, all music should be congregational. And I actually think we've lost something in terms of
I grew up
mentoring.
With that. There was always a special music number of every, and it could be a pious duet, or whatever. But there's so many. Carolyn, my mother got a guitar at 8. And I wasn't allowed to touch it because they thought I'd break it. So I'd watch her fingers when she was practicing and memorize it. And then when she went out into the garden, I'd sneak the guitar down and play. And by the time they caught me, I was a better player than she was. And my first song, it was written around 12, so a little later. I'm a later bloomer. And we had a family gospel band called the Alf Bell Family Singers, and my first song is on there, and it's a very pious song. Ask Jesus to help me because I'm not reaching my goals. That's the song. Like, I'm not reaching any kind of goal is the last line of the thing. So it's super pious and super sincere. And it's not very good, but it's great, right? Like it's an actual song. It has has verses and choruses. It has a memorable melody line. And then I did a lot of the Sunday special music stuff. I didn't have pastors ask me to write songs, but there was always a place if I did write one or if I had something I could go do it. So when did you start thinking of yourself? Like at what age did you start thinking maybe this is kind of who I am? Maybe this is going to take me somewhere. Another question that goes along with it. You got a degree in English and psychiatry. Did your music career come after that? Like what came first? Did you not know you're going to be a musician? Did you have another plan?
Yeah. So I kind of all through my teen years, writing.
Okay.
And you kind of it was kind of almost like I was so shy still,
Mm.
socially awkward. And it was almost like my secret life or my,
Hmm.
like I had my places where I'd go play it, but yeah, it was just really important in terms of a kind of a form of discovering what I thought about things and praying and journaling. It was all kind of in the form of songwriting. I I knew that I was passionate about it, but I could not imagine that you could have a career in that. Like, that that you could have a career in music seemed to me like something that happened to extraordinary people, and I
Yeah.
definitely knew that I was not extraordinary.
Right. Right.
So I thought I was going to be a doctor. I actually started university on kind of science
Mm.
scholarships, flamed out of that really quickly.
Hmm.
Like I've always said, chem and bio classes were at like 8 and 9 in the morning, and I might not have known I was a musician yet, but I had a musician's physiology. I did not want to be up that time of day in a
Right.
lab,
Right.
and so switched into humanities. Did do I think 98% of a minor in music. Like did do some music
Right.
classes, I was at Trinity Western, ran our coffee shop and sometimes performed at it, so it was always there. And in truth, I was in the piano rooms constantly rather than in class writing songs,
Oh,
writing songs.
okay.
And just before my senior year, I was dating this guy named Mark Arends. And just before my senior year, he kind of sat me down and said, it's sort of obvious to everyone but you that you should do this music thing. Like you should, and which I've reminded him many times over the years. Hey, you said I should do this. When I was heading out
Yeah.
on tour and we
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
little kids, and yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really him that kind of said, you have to take this seriously. This is
Hmm.
this is something you're made for. And that was the same summer that I went, as far as how it happened logistically. It was the same summer I went to a like Christian artist retreat in Estes Park, Colorado. They
Oh,
used to
yes.
happen
Yes. I knew.
every year.
Yes. I remember those. I never made it to
Yeah.
one, but I always wanted to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to, I had heard about it. I had demos of my songs. I was not singing them. I didn't think I could sing. I thought, oh, I think maybe I can write songs, but I always say, like, I grew up an alto in a sandy patty world.
Right.
And, and so I just didn't think I could sing high enough.
I know exactly what that means. Not everybody will, but I know
Not
exactly
everyone
what
will,
that
but
means.
the
Yeah.
people who know will know.
Yeah.
If you know,
Yeah.
you know. And so I had these demos that had been recorded in the basement of a church with some of my friends singing my songs, and I
So
brought
what? So
them.
just quickly, what would you have been recording on? That's before digital. Like,
Yeah, like a 4-track cassette recorder with
wow.
my friend Brian.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
and like
Yeah.
bad, but just trying to get the
Yeah.
songs down,
Yeah.
and went to this conference thing, and they had one of those typical panels where
You could play your
there's a row
song.
of publishers, you play your song, they tear it apart,
Yeah.
it's completely
Yeah.
demoralizing.
Yeah.
And I did that and they did that, but afterwards a couple of them gave me their cards and said, I think I hear something here.
Hmm.
And one of them was a young woman who was probably, I don't know, I would have been 19 or 20 there, and she was probably in her mid 20s, but she had just started working at Benson Music in Nashville. And she said,
Mhm.
will you keep in touch, just keep sending me these demos and you should try singing them. And so all through my senior year I sent her recordings of stuff I was writing.
Mhm.
And at the end of my senior year, Mark and I got married, and then she said, hey, would you like to do a staff writer deal with us? And I didn't really know what that was, but I said, sure.
Mhm.
And started going to Nashville once a quarter to record demos and learn to write with other writers and artists. And so that's how it started.
And the
As
idea would be that other artists would pick up those songs. That you were
Yes,
at that point, you weren't writing for Carolyn Arends. You were writing for their artist pool, in a sense. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
For just all different kinds of artists who were looking for
Mhm.
tunes in Nashville. And then how that kind of grew into doing my own thing. So basically, once I got signed, I thought, okay, wow, now I'm writing for other artists. So I need to strip out anything that's too particular to me and just write, things that anyone could sing. And so I started doing that. And Andrea, my publisher, called me and she said, "Why are you suddenly writing terrible songs now that I've signed you?"
Oh my goodness.
And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "Well, they used to be so passionate and personal and detailed and specific, and now they're generic and milk toast." And I would say, and so that's when I learned that the more, generally speaking, there are exceptions, but the more personal something is, the more universal it is.
Right.
And so I just went back to writing kind of things that were true to me. And Benson more and more got me to sing my own demos. So, and our guys that were listening to material for their artists started saying, "Well, who's the girl? Who's this? Who's singing it?" And but I kept saying, "I'm too shy. I get too bad stage fright."
So had you at any point at this point done a solo Carolyn Arends concert anywhere? Like, were you out there doing concerts, or were you just occasionally special music on a Sunday morning?
I was probably doing coffee house sets and things like that. I was experimenting a little bit. But for those in that early stage, when I first signed that deal, I thought, "Oh, this is perfect because I'll have this creative outlet, but I won't have to put myself out there." But actually the turning point was, I can't remember if it was the next year after I had gone to Estes Park and met Andrea from Benson, if it was the next year or the year after that. It was either 12 months later or 24 months later. I got to go back as a signed songwriter and sit on the other side of the table. It was like, it was just
at Estes,
right? Yes, at Estes.
Oh, nice.
It was this amazing, like, whew, this feels good. I like it better on this side of the table.
Okay, so just stop for a second. For those that don't know what Estes is, just basically, it was a place that mostly Christian singer-songwriters could go and test out their stuff. And it's always the idea that you hope you're going to get discovered. There's going to be stars there. There's going to be producers, all that. So you now being on the panel side, that's kind of in the club. Yeah.
It was nice. Yeah.
Right.
But what happened was I had an afternoon off. And do you know Tom Jackson?
I do.
He's okay. So he coaches artists on kind of stagecraft and performance and how to make people feel at ease if they come to hear you sing and that kind of thing. So he was doing this workshop on kind of stagecraft.
Okay, so hold on. What year is that? Because I didn't realize he's been at it that long then. Because I met him in the mid-late 90s. So.
Okay, so it was a little before that. I signed my publishing deal in '89. I wonder how many people listening to this weren't even alive yet.
Yeah.
But I signed, and so it was either 90 or 91.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm not clear on the timeline, but 90 or 91. So I slip in the back of his performance workshop. So there must have been some part of me that was like wondering if I could ever. Could ever do my own stuff. And he was talking about, he was saying, and maybe you've heard him say this if you've worked with him or been to any of his stuff, but he was saying, artists think that when somebody comes to your show that it's about, the lights or the sound or even the musicianship or, whatever, how many octaves you have vocally or whatever. And he said, all that stuff helps, but that's not why somebody's there. If somebody's come to see, spend time with you while you're on a platform, they've come to make a connection and feel loved.
Right.
And I thought about like all the concerts that had lived in my memory were the ones where I was like, oh, Bono is singing to me. Like we have a connection. We've made this, or that connection you feel with everyone else who's there. When you all start singing along, you realize you all know the same thing by heart, right? And so I thought, that checks out. And he said, so anytime you find yourself on a platform, your job is to love the audience well, which he defined it as just using all that you are and all you have available for the good of everyone in the room. So that was all checking out for me. And then he said the thing that there's very few things in life that like flip a switch and kind of change your life. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
before and after.
Mm-hmm.
There's a before and after for me in what
Mm-hmm.
he said next, which he said, your job is to love, and the enemy of love is self-consciousness. And I thought about my shyness and my
Right.
self-consciousness and how it definitely kept me from loving people when I was on a stage. I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, well, oh, that note was flat. And what am I going to say between the next song?
Right.
And,
Right.
just all this self-consciousness that was keeping me from loving people well. But it was also self-consciousness was keeping me from loving people well just in life. I would,
Right.
I'm not good at small talk. So I'd be worried about that instead of really seeing the person in front of me and loving them well. And so I literally came back from that conference and I had agreed to sing in this songwriters round at the Railway Club in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
It was a rainy Thursday night. I'm in the green room. Once again, I feel sick to my stomach. I'm shaking. I'm like, why did I say I would do this? And then I remember what Tom said. Okay, your job is to love, and the enemy of love is self-consciousness. And so I pray and I go, okay, just help me not worry about myself tonight and love these people. And I step out on that stage and I'm suddenly so curious. Like, why are these people here? It's raining. It's 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. They've never heard of me. What are they looking for? Like, why are they here? I was fascinated with them and I had a blast. I mean, I'm sure I still had so much growing and learning to do about performing, but for the first time ever, it was so fun to be on a stage with them. And it just completely changed it and kind of opened the door for me to grow into what I ended up doing with a big chunk of my life.
Wow. That's great. I'm very happy to hear about the Tom Jackson connection because I have connected with him. He actually helped me put a show together one time for a bunch of music execs. It was hilarious because I'm just so not that way. But
Right.
but it was great. He's quite a character. I'm glad you. So okay, so we don't. Where does Roy Salmon come into your story? Folks that know me, and know you know there's a common connection there. Roy is a recording producer. He was with Benson, wasn't he? Was he with Benson when
kind of after that. So
right, but did you know him before or after? Like where does he come in for you?
Before, yeah. Okay. So in around that same timeline, and actually just before we do that, can I ask you, because you are so amazing with an audience. Like I will say, when I toured with you, even though that was many years into this journey of learning that like, oh, it's just about loving each other when you're on a stage.
Yeah.
Even something that I was struck with when I first toured with you is like the way you would receive applause. Like you would finish a song, the audience would applaud, and you would sit back, your chest would open up, you would receive it in a way like that I had not learned to receive it. And there was this like dialogue going. And I think you might have even said to me, well, this is their chance to communicate. Like this is their chance to
I've always thought, I've thought of that from stage, but also after stage. So when I do a concert, I tell a lot of stories, and a lot of them are personal, and people graciously sit there and are super hospitable to my stories. And so I'm glad to do that. I'm glad I can make a career of this. Something a lot it's a gift to me. I mean, the whole spirituality of AA is healing comes when you tell your story and someone listens to it. So it's my job to tell my stories and have somebody listen to me. So it's a gift to me, but I'm also quite aware that there needs to be reciprocity. So after concerts, I don't consider my concert done till I'm kind of the last one out the door. People want to talk to me. I like to be there. But it's the same thing with an audience. So you empty yourself into them, and then you give them, if you don't give them a real opportunity to be grateful, to sort of say something back. I mean, obviously they have to do it by clapping, but I don't see that as well done.
It's something else.
I see it much more about it being dialogical in some way, and them able to give back after I've given them something, and it's an exchange. So, I mean, in indigenous cultures, in ancient or traditional cultures, like all economy is gift exchange. So I bought a jacket. I hope this fits. This kind of popped in my mind, but I bought a jacket several years ago from an indigenous merchant at a powwow, and it had this indigenous emblem on the back, and I wasn't quite sure if I could wear it. Is this, cultural assimilation, all that kind of stuff? So I said to her, "Is it okay if a white?" Because I loved it. I says, "Can a white guy wear this?" And she joked, and she says, "If he buys it for me, he can." so it's a laugh. So then a couple months later, I'm with a friend of mine who's an elder, and he commented on this jacket, and I said, "Oh, thank you, I like it." And I says, "I'm still a little awkward, but is it okay if I wear this?" And he says, "Well, how did you get it?" So I told him I was at this powwow, and I met this merchant, and I bought it from her. He says, "Okay." So he says, if anybody ever asks you, where you tell her that this was a gift from an indigenous woman. I says, no, I bought it. He goes, no, she gifted you the jacket and you gifted her $80. And
wow,
I said,
that really shifts it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I said, "Oh, that's semantics." He goes, "No, it's actually how we think." He says the economy in traditional healthy traditional culture, the entire economy is gift exchange, right? And so you want to take that into the economy of music. I give the gift of my music. They give me the gift of their attention. They give me the gift of applause and affirmation. And there's a gift exchange. And I think if you take that seriously, it changes the feel of the concert. You're not there to be a star or. It's a very different thing. It's more like a table fellowship meal than it is a rock concert, right?
Yeah, I love that. And it makes so much sense. Like I remember in one of the first shows I did with you, you said something about like, "Oh, I don't know if I told you my daughter got engaged or something." And the whole audience was like, "What? No." And I was like, "Oh, wow, you are just hanging out with these people. Like they know you and they know your life." It was amazing. So cool. I love that. I love that.
Oh, good. Well, good. Oh, that's funny that you would notice those sorts of things. But yeah, like, and I still do. I feel that every concert event is in that sort of exchange of gift, and at their best. And when you know this, when I come to a concert, there's nothing in me, like, or I don't want to tell that story again, or I'm cranky, or I'm tired, or I just would rather be somewhere else, or whatever. And my prayer is always that God would open my heart to be generous.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. To even though I don't feel like it right now. And whenever I can do that, all those lovely feel things happen.
Yeah.
And when I don't, you end up performing. And and we're both good enough. We can perform and pull it off. Like I know how to play a C chord and sing my songs. But the real magic is in that whole, somehow in that exchange, for sure.
Gift exchange. Yeah. I love that. Well, speaking of gifts, back to our mutual friend, Roy Salmon.
Yeah. Where does Roy fit into this?
Yeah. So people probably, as you mentioned earlier, he's a producer friend of ours and just a dear friend of ours. And I would say somewhere in that fuzzy period where I was growing, out of thinking I would just be a writer for other artists and into doing my own work, I met a guy named Spencer Capier, who has been my duo partner for 35 years.
Guitar, mandolin.
Violin.
Singing.
Genius guy. And he knew Roy Salmon. They went to the same church.
Okay.
And he said, "You need to meet Roy." And so I met Roy, and I think maybe I had already signed my first record deal, or was in the middle of signing my first deal to do my own work. And so he and I had these epic sessions of, I had like quite a big back catalog because I had just been, writing instead of attending my college classes. So I had a lot of songs, and we just did all these like quick and dirty demos of all these songs. So he'd find a loop and I'd perform it, and then we'd find one color instrument, and we just did a gazillion of those songs to just kind of work up my catalog and see which songs would kind of rise to the top, And
so Roy loves that too, eh? Like he just loves that whole discovery process and not coming to a song with too much predetermined, direction. Yeah.
And he's so talented. He can play so many different things that, So yeah, that was a very important time too, in terms of like realizing what my songs could be. It was probably another really important time in terms of finding my voice and how I wanted to sing my stuff. And also he just asked, as a friend, he just asked these really provocative philosophical questions,
always.
and started to help me get out of maybe some of the religious boxes I had been raised in, the way I had understood faithfulness, like religious faithfulness. And so yeah, he was such an important mentor in that time. And then after I signed and started, my first record, the producer on the first record was Brown Bannister in Nashville. Right. Roy ended up coming to Nashville around the same time and working with a lot of the same folks, which was awesome. He was able to come by while I was recording and played, accordion on Seize the Day that he had played on the demo.
So he is on Seize the Day. He's
the accordion player on Seize the Day. Yeah.
Because, when I think of Carolyn Arends' music, like I think your voice and your guitar, accordion, fiddle, right? And a mandolin or bouzouki or something like that, that double string sort of thing. But that is like Seize the Day, it's sort of, this is the Carolyn Arends sound.
That's the core, the
center, and so whenever it's there, I kind of go, there's Carolyn, and whenever it's not there, I'm very intrigued. Because it's so either way, so when I didn't hear that on your new song, that's the first thought. Where's the accordion? Where's it, so this is different. I'm intrigued, right? Like, so it kind of pulled me in, but that's because that's kind of the gold standard, right? Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah. And what's super fun is I did the new song with Roy. So after my first 4 albums I did with Reunion Records in Nashville, worked with, mostly Nashville producers and personnel. There's a few side notes to that story, but for the most part. And then after that, went more independent once I had my second baby, and just could not tour at the levels that would work for a Nashville record label. Started working with Signpost, working with you as far as getting my stuff out. And made my way back to working with Roy, and then he has been my co-producer on at least the last, I've kind of lost track, the last 8 records or something like that. So it's been a lifelong, musical partnership.
So going back, this is great, and I love all of that. And but I do want to ask you, your second album was called
Feel Free.
Feel Free. Okay, so when we think of Carolyn, we think, pretty, like folksy, encouraging, all those. And those are all very much a part of who you are and what you do. The first 3 or 4 songs on that album, like, have got like screaming guitars off the top. It's just, I went back last week because I started thinking, well, I got to do this podcast with Carolyn and ask her about her new song. I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night, and I ended up listening, I think, for 4 hours to Carolyn Arends songs.
Oh,
just kind of going back, and I forgot how many albums you put out. And I know all of them, right? But it was sort of like, oh my, because I thought I'd listened to a couple, refresh my memory, and then it was like the second hour, and then it was the third hour, and the fourth hour. I was like, oh yeah. It was such a lovely, and as much as you have a sound, it's not a narrow swath. It's quite a wide swath, actually, and it's and lyrically, it's everything from quaint stories to profound theology. It's grief, it's encouragement. It's just, so many times like, what book was she reading when she wrote that one? Or who's behind that heartache? Or so it's not narrow at all. But when I listened to that album and I thought, oh my, this is just like, again, the first couple songs, I don't want to say edgy, but certainly gritty in the production. So who produced that? Was that an overt decision? I'm thinking Sheryl Crow. I'm thinking, was that era?
It was, yeah. I for sure would have been listening to Sheryl Crow and Amy Mann and folks like that. I was, so my first album came out, I was maybe 25. that the second one I was maybe 27, and the first album I toured with Rich Mullins, and then I'm trying to remember, I guess I had done the second album before I did an arena tour, but maybe I was thinking about sort of bigger stages and having more musicians available to me, and yeah, I think it was kind of a like, here's my chance to like play with effect pedals and see what happens. So the Brown was still involved in producing it. And I think it was the first time that I was a co-producer. So from that second
so that early. Okay.
I always really liked to roll up my sleeves and get in there with it.
Right.
And then we didn't mix it in Nashville. So that was part of it. We mixed it with a guy named Eric Seraphin, who I'd fallen in love with from the, oh man, I can't think of his name right now. Ben, he played the, Ben Harper. Do you remember Ben Harper? I had fallen in love with the sound of those records, and Eric had mixed those records. So we went out to LA and got him to mix that record. And my, sort of little slogan at the time was folk meets rock head on, no one gets hurt. This was, or folk crashes into rock head on, no one gets hurt. That was
that's true, because what is interesting is how gritty some of that production is, but at no point do you think that you'd lost your way. Like, that still's Carolyn. Like that's what I found fascinating about it. So like I didn't panic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, where's the Carolyn we all know and love, right? It just felt totally right and natural. So I'm just curious about that, right? Because that's quite a swing.
And I mean, by the next album, I was sort of back squarely in my kind of, adult alternative to folk, folk pop sensibilities. But it was just, I think I did that because I could, like I was allowed, and it was just really, really fun. I was at an age and a stage and what I was listening to where it was just really fun to do something that was a little bit louder and more experimental. And it's still fun to pull those out in concert, especially if it's a concert with a band and play those tunes. So
No, I want to get you a new song, but not everybody gets a tour with Rich Mullins. And so I would love to hear any thoughts or reflections you have from that time. Did you do a lot with him or a little bit? It was a fair bit, right? You were friends, were you not?
Yes. I mean, I'm shy to say that because he was kind of a legend in my mind. But the very first tour I ever did was opening for Rich and another artist named Ashley Cleveland, who's a legend in her own right. Amazing. Yeah. And my record had just come out. In fact, my first record might have even come out during that tour. And I had signed with Reunion Records because Rich was there. I'd gotten a couple of offers at a couple different labels. And I thought, okay, I want to go where Rich Mullins is because they let him be quirky. And, I kind of had a sense at some of the other labels that they knew the kind of formula that worked on radio and they would turn you into that. And whereas they had let Rich, he'd had some great radio hits, but he also had this catalog of very quirky, very sideways kind of songs. And so I did a 10-week 63 city tour with him.
Oh, that's significant.
Across the States, and mostly soft seater theaters, every once in a while in a bigger church. And man, I'll never get over the kind of the gift that was. It was only maybe 18 months before he was tragically killed at the age of 41 in a car wreck. So none of us knew what a gift it was to get that time with him. And then, in terms of how he treated me, I learned later, most kind of tours of that level, if you're the opening act, I was the opener for the opener. So you're going to get maybe a quarter of the sound system, a quarter of the lights. You're going to help people find their seats. And that's just right and good. That's just how you grow a show. But he would have none of that. I had full lights, full sound. He would walk out on stage at the beginning because he knew how hard it'd be as a new artist to introduce yourself. So he'd always just kind of walk out on stage with me, usually barefoot and kind of sweaty and gross, because he usually would do a run right before the show. So he'd come in sweaty and gross, walk out on stage with me, you know, kind of put his arm around me and say, everybody, I want you to meet my friend Carolyn. Like, just his hospitality was unbelievable. At the same time, I had grown up in my little Baptist bubble, and here was this guy. He had stopped drinking at that stage in his career, but he still smoked and he swore like a sailor. And I was like, what is going on? My paragon of Christian writing is what's happening. And the way I sort of reflect back on it is I think about halfway through the tour, I was like, oh, I think this is a man after God's own heart, in the sense that he was so passionate in his pursuit of friendship with God that, like, he just really did not have time to manage perceptions around those parts of himself that he knew still needed transformation and healing. He just didn't do any hiding, any cleaning up. He didn't have energy for that.
Yeah, I heard that. I've heard those stories. Yeah, that he was just quite a shock to the system in a sense, you know, because we typically tidy up for our churchy things.
Yeah.
You know, and he just didn't have that kind of energy, right? He just,
and at the same time, he loved the church. Like, that's what's amazing. Like, he would talk about that church is the only place you can go and hear men sing full voice out of tune. And that makes it a beautiful, beautiful place to be, you know. Loved the church, loved the Bible, loved, you know, the characters that come to us in scripture were, I swear, as real to him as his bandmates, you know, like Jacob and Abraham and Isaac. He just, so just an extraordinary human. And for me personally, what a gift that's kind of how I started, you know? Yeah. So, and I mean, honestly, friend, I don't want to be weird, but I think of you and Rich as these two gifts of just giant artists that I respect. I'm not even making eye contact with you over Zoom because I'm bad at saying things directly to my friends, but I talk about you to other
look
people.
Look away.
Yeah, exactly. As you and Rich both, as having what I would call a prophetic edge, this ability to tell the truth, this incredible generosity of spirit. And I can't believe that I've gotten to know and work with both of you. So kind of
I can't believe I never got to meet him. I had a friend of mine who booked his concerts, and she was bound to determine that we would meet, and then he died. So it didn't happen. But another 3 or 4 months it would have. So you're my only connection.
Right. You guys would have got on.
I'm glad to hear that. You know what? There's I'm just looking at the time, and there's so many things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about our tour with Bob Bennett. He just came out with a new album.
And it's so good.
It's so good.
People
and
must listen.
It's really Bob. It's really Bob, you know.
Yes.
But he, like myself and like yourself, are now the old guard. We've seen a lot of changes, you know. We don't really, you know, it's like nothing that we used to do in terms of the structure of how you do this exists anymore. And so, I mean, you've just put out a single with no album. That's kind of a new thing from Weight of Our Thinking. He's putting out an album, no record label. It's all by himself. It's brilliant. It's beautiful, but there's no support for it, you know, and you just kind of throw it out into the internet. And so, I mean, I want to talk about your song, but you just spent money producing a new song that I'm going to guess has not a chance in Hades of making your investment back. Why do you do it?
Well, because maybe it's that gift exchange thing. There's something. Why did I do it? Because the song came. I mean, that's the first thing, right?
Yeah.
Like when a song comes, that is a gift. You and me both know it. I quote
know.
you all the time when I talked to you one year and said, have you been doing any writing? You were like, I got nothing. And you said to me, have you done any writing? And I was like, well, one song in 18 months. And you're like, you got a song? You're God's favorite. And, we know that you can't, it's not like a faucet, at least it's not for me, like a song. So when a song comes, especially for me now, where it isn't actually the point of the spear on my vocation anymore.
Right.
It's still a huge part of who I am, but it's not sort of how I pay the bills. And so when a song comes, it just feels like gift. And then it feels like there's a responsibility to steward that gift in some way. Yeah. And it sort of doesn't leave you alone. It just kind of keeps like poking at you like, hey, what are you going to do with this thing that came?
I know.
And I had, in my work at Renovaré, they very generously gave me an 8-week sabbatical earlier this year. And said my mandate was to not be productive for 8 weeks. That was so they always blessed my work, but they were like, don't you dare go and spend 8 weeks grinding away in a studio or something. You just need to rest. Yeah. So I did. I rested. But then right towards the end, I was like, but if I just went in and just, recorded a couple of songs, and Roy had some time. And so we recorded 2, the song that's out now, which is called Fall in Love, and then one called Nothing But Love, which is a Christmas song that'll be out.
Soon. Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And so why did I do it? Maybe a sense of needing to steward a gift, and because it's really, really fun. It's just really fun.
Yeah. I do, whenever I write a song, this is so funny. I'm just so happy.
Right.
I'm just so happy. And when I haven't written a song for a long time, I don't want to say I'm unhappy, but there's a barrenness there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when our daughter was born, Sarah, and she was this beautiful little girl with the gossamer hair, and she was sweet as anything. And you'd take her to a mall, and she would just bless everybody in that mall. I mean, she was just, and all of a sudden you realize, I'm doing humanity a gift by taking my daughter to a mall. She was just so lovely, and how could I not do that? And I think to some degree, I do think that way a little bit about the songs too. I mean, I can't really take full credit for Sarah. I had a part to play in her existence, but she's not mine. Yeah. And I feel the same way with songs, that I played a part in these things coming, but I need to take them out so people can kind of go, oh, what a sweetheart, or whatever, Yeah. So I still feel a little bit of that. With this song, honestly, Carolyn, I mean, when I heard this song, those first harmonic notes, and then that first line, I jumped out of my chair. I haven't heard a song for a while that really has done that for me. And I was just so happy. I was happy for you. I was happy for me that I get to hear it. I immediately went to your little blog post to find out where the song came from. Sure enough, it's from a poem. I'm going to read it, Poem Prayer. So why don't I just read it, and then you can just sort of talk to us a little bit about how it came about.
Are you gonna read the original?
Yeah.
The original poem? Okay.
Yeah, because I always find this interesting. Like if people saw the original things that I often work with, they might sometimes not even recognize, and so, but this is Joseph Wellen. He's a Jesuit. SJ means Jesuit, right?
It is. Yeah. I think of it as Whelan, but it could be Wellen. Yeah. Okay. But I think it's Joseph Whelan. Yeah. And he's a Jesuit priest. This piece for many years was attributed to another more famous Jesuit named Pedro Arrupe. But people are pretty sure it actually comes from a talk that Joseph Whelan gave. Yeah.
Okay. So it says, nothing is more practical than finding God, than falling in love in a quite absolute final way. That's okay. Nothing is more practical. I can think of so many more practical things, but that's what grabs you, right? What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide what will get you out of bed in the morning, what you do with your evenings, how you spend your weekends, what you read, whom you know, what breaks your heart, what amazes you with joy and gratitude. So, fall in love. Stay in love, and it'll decide everything.
Yeah.
That's so good. How do you understand that first line? Nothing is more practical than finding God and falling in love in a quite absolute final way.
Final way. Yeah. So the Jesuits, I've been getting to know kind of Ignatian spirituality more and more, and I think their great insight is how much the affective realm, our emotions, our inner landscape, the movements of our hearts, what an active place that is for the work of God. And I grew up distrusting that whole part of life, that you're feeling, the heart is desperately wicked and leads you astray. And, so a lot of my faith journey has been learning like, oh no, this is the place where I meet with God in the affections of the heart. And so I think he's just saying like, nothing will more practically change what you do with your life. And he explains it later, what you read, who you talk to, what you put time in, or what you spend your money on, all of it, where your thoughts drift, what you do for work, all of it. Then if your heart gets seized by that greater love, by God. So to me, I think it's just absolutely truth. And I would, over the years, I had a mentor, Trevor Hudson, who would end talks with this poem, and then I started ending talks with this poem, and just loved what it said.
It's the kind of thing I'm already now keeping beside my bed, and just sort of reading it again and again. It's got that thing to it. So, do you know Norm Wurzbach?
More just through you.
Yeah, great. Yeah. He's got a book on hope that just came out a while back. And his whole thing is like when you ask him, and he's very realistic about the peril the planet is in right now on so many different levels. And when you ask him, where does hope come from? And he says, that's not a great question. He says, the better question is, what are you prepared to love? Right? Because if you're prepared to love, and there's a lot in the word prepared, right? If you're then there's hope. So I feel that a little bit. There's something very practical right here. But then in the second, but then you put your own self in there too, because the second verse, just that's line, which stunned me like the first line of the first verse, is yours when you say, "Nothing is more moving than beholding the face of love, beholding you."
Yeah.
And I kind of fell over there. I've got a few moments in my life where I've looked at somebody and then been caught off guard by how lovingly they're looking at me. And I'm gazing into eyes of love, and I realize as I'm beholding the other, they're holding me. Like so that this again, it's that reciprocity, it's that gift exchange.
Yeah.
Right. That mutuality. And when I think, and I've longed for that in human beings, I look to see, am I being seen?
Yeah.
Am I being held? And I'm learning to see that in Christ.
Yeah.
Right. And that, as sort of like the, who is it? Brian Walsh says, every love song ultimately is really to Jesus in the end.
I love that.
And that all our loves are preliminary to, that. And there might be something about getting older. I don't know. When you're the rages of your body have settled down a little bit, and all your all that kind of stuff, and you start to realize that there's an essence to this gazing and being, looking and beholding and being held. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I've got a little notebook on song ideas, and it's the ideas behold and beheld.
Oh wow!
And I wanted to write. I wanted to write that song, and then you did it.
No.
Yeah. But it's lovely. But again, how do you? Any comments on that? That sort of reciprocity of beholding and being held.
So, I resonate with so much of what you just said, and another one of the gifts from the Jesuits is this practice called the prayer of examen, where you just kind of maybe on a 20, whatever kind of rhythm you can handle, maybe ideally every 24 hours, you sort of light a candle and you go over the previous 24 hours with the Lord, and you look for places of consolation where you could see that your heart was moving towards God and God's heart was moving towards you, and places of desolation where you can see that you were moving away. And there's a little book called The Examen Prayer by a Jesuit named Timothy Gallagher, and he kind of lays out the steps of how you do this examen prayer. You light a candle, but there's like there's maybe 4 movements and how he describes it, but there's a transition one before the 4 movements, and it says, I light a candle and I become aware of the love with which God looks upon me as I prepare to make the examen. I light a candle and I become aware of the love with which the love uh, the love with which God looks upon me as I prepare to make this examen. And I very often cannot get past that first stage. I light a candle and then I begin to have a taste of the love with which God looks upon me, and it's enough. It's enough. And again, my friend Trevor Hudson, who originally introduced me to this poem, he very often, when people will come to him, I watch him mentor students, and people come to him and they're like, this is going on in my church, or this is going on in my family, or I keep hitting this wall, I can't get over this thing, or whatever. Very often his counsel would be, for the next 7 days when you wake up, could you just ask God for an experience of his personal love for you? Just not that God is love in the abstract, ontologically, that's who God is, and he has to love you. It's kind of in the contract of his nature. But like that God likes you, and God just really thinks you're something, and that it personally loves you in a way that is unrepeatable to anyone else. Our when we had the grief conversation, you talked about that you realized, oh, I'm the only son to lose this dad, right? And this exchange. And in a similar way, there is a love that you and God and that I and God share that is utterly unique. And that's not to like make it all about us, but there is that capacity in the God in whom all things are held together, that there can be this remarkably personal, unrepeatable, unique relationship of love. And so the beholding the face of love, beholding me. Let me say one more thing. I know we've gone on and on and on. There's this other great piece people have to check out by this guy named Robert Marsh about how most of us relate to God. He says that most of us are predictably mind blind. And he makes this case that like until you're about 3, you're mind blind. You can't imagine that other beings have any sort of reality outside of your reality, that they think their own thoughts. Right. They have their own things that they're worried about or whatever. Right. And then if you have normal development, you'll start to realize that other people have other lives. They're independent beings. And he says, but most of us, when we come to God, we're mind blind. We don't hear what God says to us. We only hear what we think, the sort of thing we think that God would say to us. Like it's all just our projections of, and so this Ignatian idea that when you come to God, the first thing you do is you realize you're looking at God, but that God is also looking at you. And you start to wonder what sort of day God is having and how God is looking at you. And God starts to not just be an extension of your psyche and will say some surprising things. And because God is love, it almost always results in an experience of profound love if you'll carve out the space for that.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's really helpful. I love it, Carolyn. I just want if that's, I'm hoping this isn't your last song, but if this is your last song, it's enough. I just had that feeling. I don't want to overstate it. And it's such a simple song that people hear and kind of go, I'm not sure what he's hearing, but that's fine too, right? What's for me today is not for you today. But I just really hope people will spend a little bit of time with it and listen to those guitar parts and listen to the production and listen to the rhythm of it and the sort of the eternal sort of loop. Loop would be the right word, right? That's there. And then the simplicity of it. It says, I mean, there's what's the eternity in a grain of sand. That there's something. There's a simplicity there, but there's an opening there to wonders. I would say. Anyways, I'm.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I in many respects, you are the master of taking a text and setting it to music. And I have done that actually very seldom. I can think of a couple times I've taken a pre-existing poem. One was actually a poem by our mutual friend Laura Funk.
Yes.
She had written a poem about her life as a hospital chaplain, and
that's a great song.
To turn it
she
into a song
she worked for me
Let Love
or with me.
Yeah. I think that's how I originally met her. Was through her working with you. So I'd only done that a couple times before you do it. I mean, your partnership with Malcolm Guy and many other classic texts. It's tricky for sure. Like you were alluding earlier to, like it's
you're dressing someone else's child, right? Like you're, and they probably have a certain idea how they'd like the child dressed. So you got to be careful with it, or you're cutting another person's child's hair or something. Like it's that, like so you want to be careful with it. But at the same time, I just find, it lends another nuance. It lends another layer. The way you interpret something, and I probably would have written a different song that would have lent another thing. So I just find it wonderful.
And like you were saying, like it pushes you to places melodically and musically you would not have gone otherwise. Right?
You got it.
So that's very fun.
You've got to fit that sentence into a singable line. Exactly. And what sounds good spoken doesn't always sound good sung.
That's right.
Right. And so you have to figure that out. Right. So there's that's a whole other thing we could talk about sometime. That's fun about songwriting. I'm going to leave it there because we've been chatting for a long time. I just learned a bunch. I'm shocked at how much of our early story is quite similar. Someday I'll tell you, because so much of your first 15 years looks a lot like mine.
Interesting.
And I hope people find it interesting. I mean, the all the names are so interesting to me, like of those the Benson and the producers and the players and stuff. But just kind of seeing that how your life has unfolded to the point where you can put out a song like this. I think it's wonderful to rehearse that and celebrate it. So we'll go out. You put out just a little lyric video of the song. And so we're going to attach that right away in like less than 30 seconds, folks. You'll be into the song. So just in case I don't do another podcast for a year and you're the next, so I'll just say see you next time.
I hope you do much more in between, but I'm always up for a conversation with you.
Okay. Thank you, friend. Love you. Always have, always will. Talk to you soon.
Same. Love you too. Bye.
Nothing is more practical than finding God, falling in love in a quiet, final way. Nothing is more practical than finding God, falling in love in a quiet, final way. So fall in love, stay in love. It will decide everything. Nothing is more moving than beholding the face of love, beholding you. Nothing is more moving than beholding the face of love, beholding you. So fall in love, stay in love. It will decide everything. Fall in love, oh, stay in love. on.